All right, who's ready to talk about Sandy permits? it's, I'm serious. Happy Monday, by the way. It's Mondays with Mike. This topic came about because we're having an issue right now with one of my listings with Sandy permits. This is specific to the town of Hempstead. We do a lot of business in town of Hempstead. It's the biggest town, actually, I believe, in the country, certainly on Long Island. I'm talking about the township of Hempstead, not the village. So we're really talking about most of Nassau County, actually, if you look at it, is affected by this. Uh, we're coming up on, what is it, the ninth anniversary of Superstorm Sandy next month, or just about a month from now. So why is this coming up now? Well, back in the day when Sandy hit, if you had flood damage, you didn't have time for the buildings department to come out, issue a permit, and inspect everything. Everybody had to get ahead of the damage. Mold didn't form, so it wasn't dangerous. My in-laws' house actually burned down after Sandy because of what was going on with the electrical grid, and nobody was in it, thank God. But years later, the town decided you actually do need to get permits for those things. And so they retroactively were requiring you to bring them in and get permits. Now, how are they going to enforce that? Well, what they're doing now is, and this is not really new, it's just the way they're enforcing it. I've heard from talking to a couple of expediters this month, has now changed and it's more onerous. As time is passing, it's actually getting harder to get these things done. When a title search gets pulled and the buildings department search that comes with the title search comes out, there's either a yellow letter, they call it, or a red letter. Red, it's really more like a flag. It flags the attorney reviewing the report that this was in a area that the Town of Hempstead Buildings Department thinks was probably either substantially damaged if it's red, or likely damaged, and could be moderate if it's yellow. So if you have an attorney on the other side that knows what they're looking for there, they can ask for Sandy permits. And if you didn't get them, really, if the contract doesn't accept this from a seller obligation, you have to now bring the town in. It used to be a pretty easy sign off. Now, 9 years later, you have to have plans drawn up by an expediter architect, have them submitted. That's going to include all the structures on your property. So if you had a deck without a permit and the buyer was okay taking it with no permit, uh, still could have a problem because now the plan examiner for the town has to look at the plans. They're going to see any unpermitted structures and they're going to require you get a permit. Uh, in our case, possibly a variance if it's not the right size. And that includes changes to the dwelling too. We're not just talking about decks here. We're talking about possibly other changes that would have been okay by the buyer that the town is now going to force you to get legalized. Variances are taking like 7 to 8 months right now in Town of Hempstead. So time alone in fixing these things can kill a deal if you're in contract. So you've got to get plans. You have to have the electrician come in and sign off on the electrical work. And yes, it's 9 years later, so they could find other issues. And if you replace the boiler, washer, dryer, you have to get a plumber. You have to get a plumbing inspection done by the town as well. They have to sign off on any gas lines or plumbing lines for water that were changed out. So it's a time and money issue. Much better to get out ahead of it if you're in Town of Hempstead and you're in a flood damaged area. Best thing to do is actually go to the town and pull the buildings file for your property. Or you could ask a realtor to do it, an expediter, if you want to save the time. See if you have one of these yellow or red flags, and then figure out what do you have to do to get that to go away. And in the meantime, if you have an expediter in particular, you should have them take a look at what's on record with buildings and what is not on record that it's in your house. There are a lot of homeowners who, after we've met and after we take a look at the file, they're surprised that they have alterations or improvements that are not on the certificate of occupancy. They don't have a certificate of completion for it. So very common, nothing to be afraid of or ashamed of, but much better to get out ahead of this because the last thing you want to do after all the hard work and all the showings and having to deal with the back and forth getting into contract is months in having to unwind the whole thing and pause everything for a few months. So, as usual, being proactive is the best solution. Here to help, here to answer any questions to the extent I can, or refer you to people who have maybe better answers than me. You can contact me offline any way you choose. Hope everybody had a great start to fall, enjoying the last of the good weather, probably. And yeah, I'll be doing these more frequently again. We've had a lot of changes and things we've been dealing with, but I hope everybody's been well out there. Talk to you soon.